What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I have a little snippet from the Chris Williamson podcast. If you're not familiar with Chris Williamson, he has a pretty cool podcast called Modern Wisdom. I recommend you check him out if you're into like different topics, interesting perspectives, and he explores all kinds of things. Well, today, he's having a conversation with Lois Perry. She's a journalist and author, and she wrote a book called The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. And essentially, she analyzes different perspectives and consequences to women based on that sexual revolution, and that maybe it wasn't such a positive thing. So this conversation is talking about why men are giving up on women. I'm going to give you a little bit of my insights once they bring on some topics. I saw a little bit of it. I'll probably run about 5 minutes of it, but I wanted to share this with you. I know right now there's a lot of interesting things are going on between men and women dating. People aren't getting married. People aren't having children. People are just not interacting the way they used to in relationships, and people are getting divorced, and it's just not working. And they kind of talk a little bit about that here today. Let's check out Chris Williamson with Lois Perry. Let's see what they have to say for us.
18 to 24 have never approached a woman in person in their life. And, like even higher percentage, 18 to 30 haven't approached a woman in the last year. Is this downstream from Me Too?
I have a slightly weird take on this, which is that actually the thing you hear about as sort of the thing that Gen X people talk about of going up to someone in a bar and this being a way of striking up relationships, I think that was a very brief period of history, sort of post-sexual revolution, but pre-internet, where that was considered normal. And I'm slightly too young to have ever actually experienced that. The normal way actually that people start relationships in the vast majority of cultures is to be like, it is like semi-arranged marriage, right? Like not the full, you've never met this person before, 13-year-olds, whatever, getting betrothed, like not like that, but the sort of you're introduced by family members, mutual friends, you're known in the community, you go to the same church, whatever it is, and then both of your families like consent to the marriage. Is that okay? But the expectation isn't like the expectation of marriage up until relatively recently was that you would have an economic relationship, and a reproductive relationship, but you weren't best friends. Mm-hmm. And actually, I don't think husbands and wives used to talk to each other as much as they do now.
I think, what you're saying basically that, men going up to women was not necessarily like the norm. That was a little part in time, and that people used to meet, get introduced with each other. I think even when you do meet someone within your network or your group, there is that discomfort. There is that, that challenge to going up to people. Excuse me. And I think also with the way modern, technology, people are speaking less and are talking less. So it's much more awkward than it was before, where people just, you go to a skating ring, you go up to somebody, or there's a football game, you go up to somebody, and there's always kind of a nervousness. So I'm not sure I agree entirely here with Lois, but let's continue here at her point here.
I think people used to have much more homosocial kind of lives. Mm-hmm. You'd hang out with other men, you'd hang out with other women. You wouldn't necessarily hang out a lot with the opposite sex, including your spouse. So this idea that like the going up to a person in the bar is like the normal and natural way of starting relationships, I don't think is historically accurate.
That's interesting. So the male aversion felt fear of approach anxiety, which every guy listening is aware of, apart from the psychopaths, right? There is a girl that I find attractive that I either know or don't know or partly know or whatever.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you is kind of like a miniature war that you have to go to. And the felt sense of palpable fear is just ripping you apart inside. That isn't, or the modern aversion to that isn't some novel new problem. It was in your opinion here, a bar that kind of never really needed to be gotten over in the first place in some regards, because you had seen each other at church for ages, or her father owned the farm next to.
Again, even if you were seeing that girl in church for ages, I don't think it was not a nerve-wracking thing to go up to. You were still going to have to make that contact. I think, again, we're talking about today's generation, the social media, the apps, Facebook, how we're really muted in that capacity to communicate. And also, even if you go back in that day that the example that they're giving, you still got to go up to the father and ask for the hand. Like there is always a situation where you were going to have to communicate that you wanted this person, whether directly or indirectly. Continue.
To your father's land, and you guys had known blah blah blah. Like
people have much more kind of static social lives. So just approaching some stranger and ending up getting married to her is not.
I had this conversation with a guy called Mads Larsen, who is a mating ideology researcher. I'll send it to you. It's phenomenal. And he talks about this, all of the different arrangements that people went through, and the romantic to the confluent, which is what we've moved through most recently, has left us with a really interesting vestige, which is previously it was they own the farm next door. It was almost like a tactical marriage between the two of you. And then it's no. You guys are supposed to be together forever. There is supposed to be deeper meaning instantiated in this. But then as soon as you have the sexual revolution, you have confluence. So for as long as you can benefit me and I can benefit you, I think even Mia Khalifa, who obviously paragon of sexual virtue, said on a recent interview that people think that marriage is some sacred thing. It's not. It's just a piece of paper. And if this person isn't helping you grow, it's time to move on.
And I think here's another point that, the sexual revolution, kind of made sex outside of marriage. It normalized it. And Lois Perry's book challenges that notion. Was it a good idea? Is that a good concept? I think what this whole sexual revolution, this whole thing where the marriage is kind of more of a convenience, it has a lot of parts to it of why it's come to where it's come to. I think before, marriage was a more sacred thing. It meant there was more honorability to stick next to your partner through sickness, through rich or poor. And, that, especially in the West, that seems to have gone out the window. Before, if somebody were divorced, that was definitely a negative thing. And I'm not saying that if you're divorced now that you should I'm not downplaying or lowering your value. I'm just saying getting a divorce was definitely a black eye, because they held marriage at a high level. And I understand there's different situations and people need to, move apart because of abuse or whatnot. But I think we've gone beyond that into where if it's not convenient, it's not comfortable, I'm leaving. And, you have to ask yourself, what does that do to society? Are we engaging or approaching relationships in the right way due to modern conveniences? And I'll comment on something about that after they mention this, but I want to get into one more point after we continue hearing this clip.
So they just confluent ideology there,
helping you grow
front and center. You need to be helping them grow. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Helping you prepare for your next porn scene. I don't know, whatever she meant. So you have this really interesting thing, which is that both the two most recent cultures have kind of got like conceptual inertia inside of our heads, that we have this sense, and we were kind of told, and maybe some people think that it's true, that you're supposed to find a person who fulfills you, who is your confidant, your best friend, your the sexual paramour, the co-owner of your children and the household and all the rest of the things.
Yeah.
And yet modern culture is this more confluence thing, which is they're supposed to benefit you and help you grow. And these two things kind of bounce off against each other. And then, if we look back ancestrally at what we're predisposed for, it's fucking neither of those two, right? Like, you can say what you want about the truthfulness or utility of both of those. It wasn't that. And it seems like serial monogamy is what we're built for, some combination of polygyny and serial monogamy. And all of these, the existing base rate of what we are, plus the two most recent cultures, are just like the Bermuda Triangle of mating ideologies inside of our mind.
Yeah, there's this book called the All or Nothing Marriage, which is about sort of, this modern conception of marriage, where exactly this, you put so much expectation on your spouse that they will be you know, you will be perfectly sexually compatible, perfectly like conversationally compatible, you know, everything is perfect. And obviously for loads of people that isn't going to be true, and that's not going to be true for 60 years or whatever that you might be together. And so you end up with this all or nothing thing that like some people have absolutely fabulous marriages and some people just, they can't possibly take the strain and so they collapse.
And you know, they made a couple of points there, and Chris was talking about how, you know, we're wired essentially not to be monogamous, but now we are, and it's contradicting itself. I think back in the day, you know, we needed to get married because, you know, life was a lot harder. And also the question is, you know, are you getting married under the concepts and convictions, you know, of you know, the Catholic or Christian church, or what are your convictions to get married? And I think back then there was definitely more, you know, a reverence for it, but there was a need as well. And now in today, in modern society, we don't have a need to get married. We want to get married. And so we become a lot pickier about, you know, what we want. Just like Lois was saying, we want the perfect lover, the perfect communicator, the best friend. And that is a modern problem. And the question that I ask, you know, how long has modern living been around? Maybe 80 years. But prior to that, you know, we were living different lives, and we have to ask ourselves, is that the right mindset, you know, to have all these wants? I often tell a lot of my clients, you want to need your partner versus need to want them. And I think when you come into that marriage or that relationship with that concept, I think you're in a position to better survive it. But I think, you know, they bring up some interesting points here. I'm going to share this little clip for you. And, you know, because dating is hard, marriage is hard. But I think modern society has created a lot of problems for us, as well as a lot of conveniences. And I'll leave with this. The modern, you know, we don't work as hard as we used to when we used to work with our hands, or farms, or factories. And, you know, so we really got in our workout a lot. So now in modern society, because we have technology, computers, and we use all kinds of things that we don't have to use physical labor, we actually have to go out there and forcefully push our bodies in the gym or run or whatever you want. And I think some of that has bled into the relationships, is that, you know, we don't need each other, but we have to somehow wire our minds to not necessarily need them, but understand that if you don't have the concept of like being together to survive, you know, and it's not always about convenience, and it's going to be a lot harder to stay married. Anyhow, that's what I have for you today, guys. If you have any comments, you know, give me your opinions. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to be uploading more material about these topics. Give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and thank you for stopping by. Remember, people don't have ideas, ideas have people.